On today's show, we break down the entirety of the first round of the 2024 NHL Draft class.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm Sebastian High, the Director of European Scouting at Dobber Prospects, typically joined by Hadi Kalakesh, the Director of North American Scouting at Dobber Prospects, but he's going to return for next week's episodes. Before we jump into today's show, where we're going to break down every single pick in the first round of the 2024 draft in quickfire mode, this episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your next purchase. Let's start right off with this episode then, because we have 32 players to get through and only about half an hour of time. So starting off at number 1, Macklin Celebrini is the selection for the San Jose Sharks. The only player that was really eligible for this draft slot. Macklin Celebrini broke records with Boston University this season. He's a 6 foot centerman, a real 200-foot type of player. He's a fantastic goal scorer. He's a great playmaker, but he drops low in the defensive zone. He knows how to support his teammates. He plays a real NHL style of game already, and he's not even turned 18 years old yet. His habits are refined, and the projection here is a top-line centerman with potential franchise upside as well. There's so much to like with this player, and he was the obvious pick at number 1. At number 2, the Chicago Blackhawks decide to shore up their defensive core long term, or at least add a really important piece of that moving forward with Artyom Levshunov, the 6'3", 200-plus pound right shot defenseman who played tremendous hockey for Michigan State University this year. Was really rumored to be the guy at number 2 for Chicago for quite a while now, but they end up making that swing, and it's a solid one in my opinion. There's a lot to like here, whether it be the mobility, the offensive potential, the flashes of dynamic on-puck abilities, and the strong defensive game as well. He's physical. He's a fantastic skater. There's so much to build around with this player. But at number 3, the Anaheim Ducks decide to just create a lot of chaos on draft day, and it was fantastic to witness that live from the media floor in Vegas, because it was like a stunned silence. And I think a lot of people had a very similar expression on their face to Beckett Sennecke himself at 3rd overall. This is a fantastic player, though, and he could really be solid value for the Ducks long term. Not the guy I would have picked in the slot personally, but he's a 6'3" power forward with silky mitts, the second best hands in the draft class by far after Ivan Demidov. And he grew his game tremendously over the course of the past year. He's really learned, he's in the process of learning how to play in his large frame, because he's grown like half a foot in the last year and a half. So a lot of adapting left to do. He's quite raw still, but the sky's the limit with his offensive potential. He's really violent. He likes to play a gritty style of hockey as well. Ducks fans are going to adore this kid. At number 4, Caden Lindstrom was the guy for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're deciding to shore up their center depth long term, and like 2 pivots like Adam Fantilli and Caden Lindstrom is exactly the type of core that you want to build around. 2 physical but really silky and dynamic offensive players who bring a mix of physicality and intelligence and dynamic on-puck ability to the equation. And Lindstrom still has a lot of growing room. He's still quite raw. And Lindstrom reminds me a lot of a guy like Quinton Byfield with how raw he is, but so deserving of a top 4 selection on draft day. The sky's the limit with his development. He could be a number 1 center at the end of the day. And even if he ends up on the wing alongside a guy like Fantilli, that's exactly the type of top line that a team like Columbus is going to want to build. But at number 5, the Montreal Canadiens made the steal of the draft with Ivan Demidov falling into their laps, and they quite giddily went up and made that selection. Well, actually, Celine Dion made the selection technically, which was also a fantastic shock on the draft floor. That Celine Dion came out after everyone was expecting it to be like a Habs player legend, and no, they came out with a trump card with Celine Dion. But Demidov is a fantastic player. He has 120 plus point upside, incredibly dynamic. He's the best puck handler that I've personally ever scouted in my time. And yeah, I think that the Habs got a real steal of a player here. The caliber of guy that you often can only get if you're selecting at number 1 or number 2 and isn't even available in every single draft class. So fantastic value here. But at number 6, Utah, who I thought was going to go up for a defenseman in this slot, they chose to go forward with Tej Ginla, the really pesky player that has been at number 4 on my personal board, is a really great swing to take in this range of the draft. He's a fantastic goal scorer. He's the best board battler in the entire draft class. There's a lot of room to grow in his defensive impact. He's really young for the class. He progressed so far in the past year. The trajectory is really going straight up. And yeah, there's a bunch to like with Tej Ginla, also a very likable, charismatic, upbeat type of person. And I think that he's exactly the kind of player that you want as your first selection after moving states and cities to Utah. And at 7th overall, the Ottawa Senators made a very Ottawa Senators pick, making a massive swing on raw tools and physicality in Carter Yakemchuk. He is aggression embodied. This is a player who doesn't really have a composure dial developed just yet in his mind on the ice, but he's a really physical player. He chases hits, he crushes players. He's a real play killer when he's on his game. He can be out of position quite regularly as well. So there's definitely work to be done there. But the defensive upside is really like seen in that physicality and that engagement, the aggression. And the offensive game is also equally aggressive. He likes to taking on multiple defenders with his handling ability, and he is an elite level puck handler as well. He has a booming shot. There's a lot of room to grow offensively too, whether it be in his playmaking or in his ability to manipulate players and use his teammates in order to manipulate opponents. There's definitely room to grow. 7th overall is a bit rich for my taste with the level of risk involved with this player, but the Sens have never shied away from this profile, and they swung hard on it here at 7th. But at 8th overall, the Seattle Kraken went and took a big swing on offensive upside and dynamism with Berkeley Catton to kind of complement the more two-way centers that they've acquired in the past couple of years with Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. Berkeley Catton is a pure dynamic rush scorer. He's highly intelligent. He's really quick. He has fantastic hands. He's a great playmaker. He's a fantastic goal scorer as well. There's so much to like in his offensive game, but his play on the cycle definitely needs some more work. His physicality needs some more work. His ability to play inside pressure is still in development, and he could kind of develop along the lines of a Matthew Savoy, which wouldn't be fully ideal at 8th overall, considering that Savoy did just get traded for a middle 6 center and a depth prospect, but the offensive upside could also elevate him to a first line role at the end of the day. And I think Seattle made a really calculated bet on potential with this selection. And then the Calgary Flames did a very similar type of thing, but they went on the blue line instead with Zayne Parekh at 9th overall, the most dynamic offensive defenseman that we've seen in the past couple of years through the draft. He is incredibly skilled. He's incredibly intelligent. Everything he does offensively on the ice could work at the NHL level. He doesn't rely on junior type of habits or plays that will not work against professional competition to create offense. But there's definitely room to grow as well defensively. He can play with quite a lot of violence and physicality, but he can struggle to box out opponents at times. And overall, the defensive impact will need some more refinement before he hits the NHL. But there is Quinn Hughes level potential here in this player if everything goes right. And everything would have to go right in order for him to hit that. But the fact that that upside is within the question, and just overall first pairing offensive defenseman, first power play quarterback. That's well within the range for Zayne Parekh. So at 9th overall, you really can't hope for all that much more than that profile. But to wrap up this first segment, we have the New Jersey Devils picking a faller, a player that I was not expecting to be available at this selection, and that's Anton Salayev, the hulking 6'7" Russian left shot defenseman who is an elite level skater, easily a top 3 skater in this entire draft class. And he's that size. It is a fantastic combination of tools, the physicality and the mobility. He is the best at closing gaps, or he's able to close gaps faster than any other prospect that I've scouted. The consistency is an element that needs some work there, but overall, the decision-making and the reading of play is a bit more of a work in progress with this player. But if he hits his ceiling, you're looking at a potential number 2 shutdown defenseman at the end of the day. And I mean, New Jersey already has a couple like two-way and offensive leaning, like high-end defensemen in their system with Simon Nemec and Luke Hughes, but Salayev adds a completely different element to that equation, and I think he was a really solid value selection at 10th overall. I had him ranked personally, I think like 19th overall at the end, but he was in a really tight tier, ranging up to 9th overall. But I think that 2nd or 3rd overall would have been very rich for me, but 10th overall was well within the range of what made a ton of sense for this type of unique profile on draft day. But that wraps up this first segment, and we're going to jump right in at 11th overall with Sam Dickinson to San Jose after a quick word from our sponsors over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. With eBay Motors, you can get everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to LED headlights and far more, eBay Motors has everything you could possibly want to lay your hands on. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what it is that you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, which is available to U.S. customers only, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, let's keep this episode running. At 11th overall, we have the San Jose Sharks, who, as I mentioned in the last episode, absolutely hit a home run with their first 3 picks in this draft class, including this upcoming guy, Sam Dickinson, the big, mobile, punishing left shot defenseman who played fantastic hockey for the London Knights this past season in a slightly depth role, playing second pairing minutes at even strength and on the power play in most of the viewings that I personally logged. And yeah, the upside here is really impressive. He is so mobile. There's a real degree of defensive upside in this player as a true play killer and a really strong rush defender. He's aggressive. He's physical. He shuts down space. The reading of plays definitely needs some more refinement, but the sky's the limit with his potential. The offensive game is also an area of strength. He's a strong passer. He uses his range and his physicality to create space for himself on puck. And I think that San Jose is going to be elated for having added this type of player to their pool. But next up, we have a player with a very different profile to Sam Dickinson, but in my eyes, even more upside. At 12th overall, Minnesota was able to get Zeev Buium from the University of Denver, the highly intelligent two-way defenseman who's a bit undersized at 6 feet, but is able to compensate for that with so much in his toolkit. Is fantastic value here at 12th overall. The offensive upside is clear with his 50 points in 42 games as an NCAA freshman, but his defensive impact is really strong. He consistently makes the most intelligent decision in every situation he finds himself in. He's so composed under pressure. He's still going to need to integrate a high level of physicality into his game to out-leverage the opponents around his own net front, but that's going to come with time, and he could be a true first pairing piece in just about 2 or 3 years' time as well. So fantastic value for Minnesota at 12th overall. But next we have Jet Luchenko to the Philadelphia Flyers, a slightly shocking selection at 13th overall. Luchenko is a high motor type of player. He is a natural centerman who played a really important role both for the Guelph Storm and for Team Canada at the U18 World Championships. And while his offensive upside is mainly found in his playmaking ability and probably caps out at a second line role, he also brings a ton of defensive value to the equation. I think with this player profile, I personally would have gone more for the next guy selected than Jet Luchenko, but Philadelphia clearly believes in this player and decided to invest a really, really high-end selection to acquire him. But next, we have the Buffalo Sabres getting Konsta Helenius at 14th overall. Perhaps a European equivalent to Jet Luchenko, but with a bit more of a proven track record under his belt, and in my opinion, also a lot more refinement in his game. Helenius isn't the best skater in the world, and he is a bit undersized, but he's one of the smartest players in this entire draft class. He's a really good distributor in the offensive zone. While there are flashes of real playmaking ability, it's his ability to distribute pucks and play strategically, a bit more like tiki-taka style of hockey in the offensive zone than like going for the primary assist every single time. But his defensive impact's also fantastic. He played great minutes at the professional level in Finland with Jukurit in Liga this past season and was a real top six mainstay for them and power play mainstay for them and penalty killer as well. So he's refined, he's projectable, he's going to be a number 2 center long term. I don't see first line upside here, but there's so much to like anyways. Next, we have Michael Brandstad-Nygård, who is the most Detroit Red Wings selection you could possibly imagine. A very similar profile to the last 2 first-round picks they made with Marco Kasper and Danielson last year. But there's a lot to like here. Brandstad-Nygård is the best defensive forward in this entire draft class. He's so intelligent. He's physically mature. He's a good skater. He has a wicked shot. There's a real two-way element in his game. While the defense is fantastic, don't pin him down as a raw defensive player. He is a really good goal scorer offensively. He gets to the dirty areas. He has pretty good handling ability as well. And he was playing fantastic minutes for Mora IK in Sweden's second pro division last season, and he's making the jump to the SHL this year, and I'm very hopeful for what is to come in his development. But next up, we have Adam Jiricek, a really interesting selection for St. Louis at 16th overall, a player who plays with a relative degree of chaos at times in his game, but is really, really violent. He missed most of the season to injury with a really bad knee injury at the beginning of the World Juniors this past season, but he got into 19 games at the Czech pro level where he really struggled because his game is one of intelligence and physicality, and he is only 6'2" and 160 something pounds, and he struggled to leverage his strengths in the professional environment. He really should have been playing junior minutes in his draft year season, but in his D-1 and D-2 seasons against junior competition, there were elite level flashes in his game, whether it be on puck in the offensive zone, as a distributor, as a shooting threat, as a dynamic creator from the blue line. There was a lot to love, but it really petered out this past season. So this is a massive swing on upside and of recovery to his past trajectory as a prospect for St. Louis, but as a right shot defenseman, he had a lot of value as well on draft day, and St. Louis took a massive swing here. But the Washington Capitals also took a massive swing with Parekh, Hattie's absolute favorite. This is a player who is just so intelligent, who was playing in the WHL last season, was the highest scoring draft eligible, apart from Berkeley Catton in the WHL last year as well. And there's a lot to like with his projection, whether it be the intelligence, whether it be the small details he's able to do to create space for himself, to get to scoring areas, to improve the condition of the puck in all 3 zones. He's not very physical. He's a bit of a complementary piece who likes to fade into the background and get lost in coverage rather than be the primary creator on a line. But clearly the Capitals love his profile, and I'm curious to see how he is developed. At 18th, Chicago went for Sacha Boisvert, the big power forward centerman from Muskegon in the USHL, who has a booming shot and plus value defensive ability as well. So he's a player that's very projectable and gives them a long-term 3C possibility down the middle, which also gives them the option to shift one of Oliver Moore and Frank Nazar to the wing inside a top 6. with Connor Bedard obviously being the number one center for that team long term. The Vegas Golden Knights, though, at 19th overall, took a massive swing on upside with Trevor Connolly. They did not shy away from the divisiveness that this prospect has been the focus of all season long, and taking a massive swing on the raw dynamic skill that he has. On raw talent, Connolly is probably a top 5 player in this draft class. He's incredibly skilled, but the intelligence and the refined and mature habits to support that skill are very much still a work in progress. He can be quite hectic and chaotic and want to do things all on his own. Quite often, he always goes for the Hail Mary play, whether it be scoring a goal or making the primary assist. But they took that swing, and it was followed up by another big swing on upside with Cole Eiserman going to the New York Islanders. Not a team I was expecting to pick him after having gone through the Oliver Wahlstrom and Kiefer Bellows sagas in the past decade, but they are taking the swing on Eiserman. I'm not sure it's the best team to develop his toolkit because he's going to need a really hands-on development strategy, but it is a risk and a really intriguing one at that. Eiserman is the best goal scorer in this draft class, bar none. He has an absolutely wicked shot. He's able to get open in the offensive zone. He finds pockets of soft ice to make his shot an available weapon to his teammates. But everything beyond that is more of a work in progress. There have been flashes of physicality and physical net drives with the puck on his stick, but the defensive involvement is next to none. Even his involvement in the rush and in gaining entry in the offensive zone is very passive, and there's a real reliance on the supporting cast to facilitate his game. But if they're able to turn him into his upside, which is a 50-goal NHL scorer, this is going to look like one of the absolutely biggest steals of this draft. So really intriguing swing here for New York. And in the next segment, we're going to wrap up the draft, starting off with the Montreal Canadiens at 21st overall, selecting Michael Hage. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. Alrighty, let's wrap up this episode with an extra quick fire round. Michael Hage to the Montreal Canadiens at 21st overall is a beautiful storyline first and foremost. But I delved into that a little bit more in yesterday's episode if you want to check out the storyline as well. Also, there's a fantastic article by Scott Wheeler of The Athletic delving into his story. But Michael Hage is a really exciting prospect on the ice as well. He's a great puck handler, a really dangerous goal scorer. He's a dynamic offensive creator who loves to have the puck on his stick and play like flows through him. And he was fantastic for the Chicago Steel in the USHL last season as by far their biggest offensive driver. He was scoring at like a 2-point-a-game rate in the back half of the season, and really developed his defensive game as well. And there's so much potential here. There's a reason that he was the top-ranked Canadian prospect of his age group up until about 2 years ago when he was overtaken by Macklin Celebrini. But the upside is really high here. Think top 6, potentially even top line. And to get that type of potential at 21st overall, you cannot complain at all if you are a Montreal Canadiens fan. At number 22, the Nashville Predators took another big swing on Yegor Surin, a really dynamic and skilled Russian winger who played in the MHL, Russia's junior league, last season. And he combines a real level of fiery intensity with that skill. He's still very junior in his habits. He likes to do things on his own at times. He tries to do a little bit too much. He doesn't always read his teammates' routes to access space that they're leaving behind them. But that can still come with time, and the upside here is well within the top 6 with significant bottom 6 fallback game as well with that checking game that he has to offer. So there's a lot to like here. But at 23rd overall, one of the steals of the draft day, Stian Solberg was somehow available at 23rd overall for the Anaheim Ducks. The violent, mobile, two-way defenseman out of Norway who was playing 30 minutes a night, whether it be in the professional Norwegian Pro League or at the World Juniors or even at the World Championships, who's playing a bunch of minutes where he was shutting down players along the likes of Connor Bedard, for instance, for Team Canada. But yeah, fantastic value for the Ducks. Their left shot defense core is set long-term. I think that can be said pretty easily here alongside the likes of Pavel Mintyukov and Olen Zellweger. And at 24th overall, the Utah Hockey Club took a swing on Cole Baudouin, one of my favorite, lower upside but high floor players in this draft class. Baudouin is an absolute physical machine. He's a specimen. He's a pure athlete, and he's a really solid two-way center at that. He's a really good defensive impact. He's a great face-off winner in the offensive zone. He gets to the net front. He's a strong net front presence, and he's good hand-eye coordination to get tips, and he's very quick reflexes as well to pounce on loose pucks. He's able to use and blend his physicality and intelligence to create small advantages, and I think this is a likely third-line center long-term for Utah. At 25th, Boston took a massive swing on upside with Dean Letourneau, the hulking 6'6" centerman from St. Andrews College in Canadian prep school circuit, who's off to Boston College this upcoming season, which is a massive leap in competition, is a real swing on upside. He has silky mitts, a really decent release, and all that with a really solid basis of mobility at his size as well. Definitely needs a lot of time to develop. Think 3, 4, 5 years. But once he hits the NHL, he could be a really intriguing middle six piece with top six potential as well. So a lot to like with Letourneau, and definitely a risky selection, but one that I think everyone was expecting some team to make on day one of the draft. Next up, Liam Greentree at 26th overall is fantastic value for the Los Angeles Kings. This is a power forward winger who is a highly intelligent and really skilled player as well. He has fantastic handling ability, and he had some of the biggest highlight reel goals of his entire draft class this season. He's really fun to watch, and he was playing on the worst team in the OHL in Windsor last year as their captain with very little support, and still managed to score 90 points. So very intriguing profile. The skating needs work, but at 26th overall, this is more than plus value for Los Angeles. Chicago went for also down the OHL route with Marek Vanacker, a really skilled, pacey winger who had some of the brighter flashes of skill in this draft class outside the top 25 range. And he also played this entire season injured with I believe it was a torn labrum. And yeah, he still played good hockey at that, and looking forward to next season with Brantford, where he'll hopefully be playing healthy. Maybe Chicago gets an absolute steal on their hands here, because the flashes of brilliance with Vanacker are really impressive. At 28th overall, the Calgary Flames made a pick that I was a little bit astounded by, with Matvei Gridin. He's a winger who played with Muskegon in the USHL as a teammate of Sacha Boisvert this season, and he has a decent level of skill in his game. I'm not fully convinced it's going to be enough to break into like a top 6 skill role in the NHL. And he's also transferring to the OHL instead of going down the NCAA route, where he was committed to the University of Michigan this season. So it'll be interesting to track his development this year, especially in terms of him exploring his offensive toolkit a bit more. He's not the most engaged player off puck either, and I have some questions with his projection, but clearly the Flames really believe in this player, and I'm very curious to see how he adapts to the OHL level in the upcoming season. At 29th overall, the Dallas Stars made a very Dallas Stars selection with Emil Hemming. The power forward Finnish winger is a player that I've liked a lot this year. He has a wicked booming shot, a decent level of mobility and handling skill as well. And he played almost the entire season at the pro level in Liga with TPS, playing a bottom 6 checking role where he wasn't put into all of these offensive situations, but was really able to round out his defensive game and his off-puck involvement. And I think that he projects as a really solid middle 6 scorer at the NHL level. At 30th overall, the New York Rangers went ahead and picked E.J. Emery, the player with a lot of stylistic comparisons to a guy like Keandre Miller, for instance, in terms of still needing to explore the offensive game, coming out of a draft year season with the program, and having a really solid basis of both mobility, physicality, aggression, and defensive intelligence. E.J. Emery is the best rush defender available in the 2024 NHL draft class, and the Rangers are going to be very happy to have landed him at 30th overall, because there was, I think, a very good chance of him going well inside the top 25. So to get him at 30th overall is great value. And while he doesn't have the highest upside in the world, the Rangers are looking to round out their team, not to build from the bottom up. So I think that EJ Emery's a fantastic addition. And the Toronto Maple Leafs at 31 also pick a really solid right shot defenseman with big defensive value in Ben Danford. While I do think they're going to come to regret trading down from the 23rd overall pick, where they could have landed Stian Solberg, who would have been the perfect fit in that organization for what they need and what they've been very vocal about needing in terms of physicality and defensive aggression and defensive impact overall. Ben Danford is a really solid plan B, and to get him at 31st overall is solid value. This is a player who consistently makes the smart decision. He is a really good distributor from the back end. He is solid defensively. He's really intelligent. He steals space and time away from his opponents, and I think he's going to be a solid number 4 defenseman for the Maple Leafs long term. And finally, the Edmonton Oilers traded up into the first round, giving up one of their next 2 first-round draft picks in the process in order to land Sam O'Reilly of the London Knights. The two-way centerman with a strong motor and good playmaking ability has been one of the bigger late risers of this draft class. He had a fantastic playoff run for London on their way to an OHL championship and into the Memorial Cup, but beyond just that, he was able to be a real defensively solidifying piece on that team, despite playing middle 6 minutes and also putting up nearly a point a game this entire season. I think the offensive upside has a lot of room to grow still, and Edmonton got a fantastic player here. I'm not sure if that trade is going to age all that well, depending on how they're going to do in the next 2 seasons and where that pick that they traded is going to end up. But Sam O'Reilly is going to become a fan favorite, and it's not going to take him too long. And he's a fantastic replacement for Ryan McLeod. So I think there's a lot to like here for the Edmonton Oilers. But that wraps up this episode breaking down the first round of the 2024 NHL Draft. I hope that you enjoyed. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave us a comment below. Let us know what you thought. Let us know which picks you loved, which picks you didn't love. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, head over to Locked On Sports Today with a 24-hour-a-day live stream of all the sporting news that you could possibly want to have access to. And that wraps things up here today. I'm Sebastian High from Dabra Prospects, typically joined by Hadi Kalakesh, but he will return very shortly. And I hope that you tune back in very, very soon.